Are you ready? The time has come. Let the show begin.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
John DeRosa,
What's up?
how are you, my friend?
I couldn't imagine being any better.
I meant to ask you before we went live, where are you in the country?
I'm in Orchard Park, New York, so a suburb of the Buffalo area.
Really? Are you a
Oh,
Bills
yeah.
fan?
Yes, sir.
Before we get into less important conversation, maybe now, I know there's a few Bills fans in the group. I don't know, maybe it's also, and I know one that's in the group, it's a sales trainer like yourself that it must be in the water. The stadium's done. What's the deal with there's a song, Mr. Brightside? What's that all about? You wanna fill me in?
Yeah, so I guess Dawson Knox, the tight end, got married, and the team was there, and there was like a video that kind of went viral, maybe locally, but it was of that song, and the whole team was probably overserved and dancing around and singing it together. So now what happens is when the team is like usually fourth quarter, if we're winning or after some big play, they'll play Mr. Brightside, and the stadium kind of sings it with the team, and it's kind of a fun thing that happens at the games.
It's a great song. Did you ever attend very many games there?
Yeah, we're season ticket holders, so we go to every home game and usually try to go to one away game a year, and so yeah, we've been there.
Are you excited about the new stadium? Is that a good thing, bad thing?
Depends how this year finishes up, right?
Oh, valid point. Never mind. Point made. All right.
I mean, we invested a lot of money in PSLs and all that kind of stuff with the hopes that, we're going to have a great season, and we're in it. So we'll see this weekend, and one game at a time, I guess.
Well, aside from your love for the Bills, again, at least you have a competitive team down here in the DC area. It's hard to be a Commanders fan. Never personally was a Ravens fan, so I don't really have much going on that side. So I'll root for you and cheer for your Bills. But aside from that, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and related to what you have done and what you're really doing now, all the way up to the current day in the industry.
Yes, I mean it's basically a long career in various roles throughout the industry. I think people ask like, how did you get involved in sales? And I remember I came out of college with a business degree. I didn't really have any plan for it. Just kind of thought I needed to go into business. And somebody came up to me one day, a friend of mine. I was like, man, why don't you go into sales? You can make as much money as a doctor. I mean, back when doctors used to make a lot of money, I guess. And they were like, all you need to do is know how to talk to people. Well, I learned that sales is probably the easiest, hardest job that you ever have. And I became a sales rep working in wholesale distribution. I was selling building products to lumber and building material dealers. And I guess very quickly into my time there, I realized that the products that I was selling weren't really any different than the products that my competitors were selling. They were selling the same stuff. So I couldn't really sell value or differentiate myself based on the product. I had to figure out a way to bring some value, and started to get involved in like training and development and trying to help my customers be more competitive, and realized that there was a need for it on the contractor side. And things just kind of spiraled at that point in time. So, I've worked in window manufacturing, window distribution, window retail, as well as roofing and distribution, and, just doing what I love, helping other people win.
And what's your favorite product? Just curious.
My favorite product?
Yeah.
You know what? That's kind of a tough question to answer, because I've always said that the best products are the ones that have the best team around them. Like even on the roofing side, right? If you ask people in the industry, like, what's the best shingle? They certainly have their opinions, but it always comes down to the people that say, well, these guys have the best rep, or these guys have the best people, because, at the end of the day, it's the support. How are we all working together to create some synergies so everybody can win? And that's why I would always think when you say best product, I'm gravitating to who are my favorite reps, who are the favorite people that I've worked with. And they're all across the board. There's a bunch of them.
I could be wrong. Have you done? I knew you from a roofing side, but I mean, obviously, there's a lot of products. So I just didn't know if you primarily or you really have covered kind of all bases. It sounds like.
Yeah, windows, roofing, on the manufacturing side, distribution side, retail side, kind of done it all. Wood windows, vinyl windows, roofing. Even, when I started, I was in wholesale distribution. I worked a lot with home improvement contractors, and that was back at the day. I don't know if guys like Walt Steppenwolf, if that's a name that rings a bell, but I mean, there wasn't a lot of training, 25 years ago for contractors. And we used to go in and teach guys how to price projects and determine their costs. And they used to have this model where, like, if my job costs were $5,000, I double it. If it's $10,000, I triple it. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
That's what
so true.
you guys were doing. It's funny, Joe, we would do like a cost survey, and I would ask guys, I would give them a fictitious situation. I would say, look, you guys are being called into my home to quote, replacing a patio door. The door costs $1,000. How many men do you send out? Are you one of the men? What do you pay for men per hour? And so one guy raises his hand and he goes, do you want the billable rate or the payable rate? And the whole room goes, what's he talking about? And it's like, you had guys, and I'm not knocking anything, but like you had guys that were paying their employees $15 an hour to do a job, and they were billing $15 an hour to do a job. And they weren't considering, FICA and workers' comp and disability and vacations and all that's the burden cost of having that employee. So when you do that kind of training, people's eyes were, now I think people know that, right? We're a lot more advanced than we were 25 years ago as an industry. But that's where I was at back in the day.
That pricing model was called cost minus. Cost minus profit. Just kidding. It was bad though.
It's also funny, Joe, is like people that would quote my patio door replacement, and they would bill me they would say 3 hours. And I'd say, well, what are you going to do with the rest of the day? Like, you're not going to start a new job. So the concept of, like, if I have to go out there for a 3-hour job, I'm billing you my day rate.
Yeah.
Because I need to generate enough income to pay my overhead for that day and make a profit. Yeah. It's like they never thought about, like, can you do that? Well, of course you can do that.
That's crazy. Well, I want to dive right in, and I want you, or I can do it after. I'll put it in the show notes, a link. It's now on Amazon. I did not get it through Amazon originally, but your book, Contractor Sales Roadmap, How to Earn Trust, Overcome Price, and Make It Easier to Close. It's funny you brought up the point 20 plus years ago. There wasn't a lot out there. You would never find that. You wouldn't. There may have been books, but nothing's ever been. There still isn't much that's tailored to what in-home, one call close, direct to consumer selling, and luckily we're, I think, seeing more of it, which is good. And I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago, I didn't put it down. And I've been doing this a long time and obviously know a lot of the things that are in here, but it's good to, hear a different view and hear a different perspective. So I want to dive right in, not necessarily on everything, the book, because people need to get it. But what do you think is the biggest lie that sales reps tell themselves when they're not closing deals?
Well, I think it's just the decision that it's not my fault. And that's an obvious answer, like from a training and a coach perspective. But, we hear guys that are making all kinds of excuses. The customer was stupid. They're too stupid to make a smart decision. The other guy was cheaper. These are all stories that I think that we tell ourselves because we don't want to be accountable to the fact that we didn't close the deal. And look, I want to be like fair to everybody. There are situations where the customer was just cheap. There are situations where they made the decision to go with the cheapest guy. And I'm not going to dispute that. But if I want to get better, if I really want to close more sales and get better, like I've got to stop looking for the reasons and start figuring out, like, what are the changes that I can make within myself? What are the things that I can control that are going to put me in a better position to win? So stop looking for reasons and start looking for results. And one other thing that I would mention too is like this whole mindset that sales is a numbers game. Like, I don't buy that at all. I think sales is a skill game. It's all about the numbers. Like, the numbers are critically important, but it's a game of skill. And if we resolve ourselves to the fact that, it's about quantity, then what we're doing is we're basically taking away all of our power. I am not in control. It's just based on how many doors I knock. And that's nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
I didn't want to go into the book right away, but that's early in the book. You
Is it
said
in
that,
there?
and I was like, praise Jesus, because it's true, you know. But the other side of it is how many that mindset prevents guys that are good from becoming great. Because I think we slow down when we look at the scoreboard. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Well, who says that's where you're supposed to be? Just because that's the budgeted number, you know, it's based off a historic data. I mean, who's saying maybe you don't break the mold and become a 60, 70% closer, right? But no, I'm playing it as a numbers game and I stop at 40 or 50 because, again, it's good enough. So,
yeah, or we get comfortable. We lie to ourselves to make ourselves feel like we're crushing it.
yep.
Like you'll have a guy in a market that's selling at a 25% gross margin and he's closing 25% of his deals and he thinks he's killing it. But meanwhile, there's guys in the same market that are at a 45, 50% gross margin and they're closing 50% of the deals. I mean, I run into situations where I like to use like the cost value report as a means to really highlight the fact that there are contractors in the marketplace that are selling at a real premium price. And every time I show somebody that, they go, oh, you're not going to get that in this market. And then I start naming names. Well, you got this guy, do you have this guy, do you have this guy? And they go, yeah. And I go, they're selling at those prices. They're closing more deals than you. And I'm not doing that as a means to pick on people. I just want us to stop setting the bar low. Like we need to set the bar high. And I think that, you know, because what winds up happening is we allow ourselves. I mean, I put a post out recently on Facebook that talked about how people want to defend the fact that you have to discount to close deals. And I have people that go, man, I've been doing this for 25 years. And if you want to close a deal, you got to give them a discount. Well, you're deceiving yourself if you think that's the case. That doesn't mean I've never given a discount. But don't tell me that the only way to close the deal is to give a discount, because if you tell me that, then I'm telling you you're doing it wrong.
I saw that post. I try to, you know, I can't recommend enough aside from the book. That's the other benefit. Like, it's a little different from the topic, but I want to drive this point home because you'll also see this where there's no reason to be a sales rep in this industry any longer with people and resources like John DeRosa that post awesome content. Like, I don't care if you work for the worst company that has zero sales training, you know, or zero this. If you want to succeed in this business, there are pros out there that are teaching and putting up content. Yours is almost daily. And the thing I like about it personally is their video, you know, of real life situations. There's one really good one that they're all good, but there's one I just sticks in my head. I shared it with the team when you were talking about Ford, the difference between buying a truck and having, you know, versus putting it together, the parts and pieces in the driveway, right? And delivering here's your new truck, and it's in boxes and skids, and you know, and it really is no longer an excuse. I mean, again, when I started, there was websites there was no information. Everybody was hiding everything close to the chest. If there were retail companies, they just wanted you to call and set a lead. So that was that reason. Just there was nothing. Maybe a brochure from the manufacturer or the distributor, but there was no product knowledge information out there. There was no real training like you see now, and just the amount of content that's out there, some good, some not so good. It really is no longer, back up to the first question we talked about, there is no excuse not to be or to be able to elevate your game in this day and age. But I just wanted to bring that point because, again, your videos are almost daily, it seems like lately, and they're awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Touch on a key point that's very real.
Well, and I think the other thing that we can't not talk about, right, is the fact that a lot of the challenges that we see with salespeople, the salespeople should be accountable to trying to find ways to be better. But I also think that ownership and management needs to do a much better job of setting a minimum expectation and holding people accountable to those numbers. And I think that what I've seen is, and this is just my experience, right, that there's a lot of business owners out there that really aren't comfortable with the sales game. So they're just focused more on the operations. Like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm the ops guy. You guys go out and sell. They think that selling just something that happens in the background. Like, I think you've got to let people know this is what you expect, and give them that minimum expectation. You've got to set a price. And look, I did a video years ago that said, the top 5 reasons why sales reps close or cut price. The number one reason why a sales rep cuts their price is because they can. Like, if you want them to stop cutting price, take away their ability to do it. I mean, they're going to bellyache. They're going to scream and holler and tell you that they can't do it, but they'll figure it out.
We saw that. We see that the one-day bath industry, when companies first get into it, they want to, occasionally they'll want to sell something outside of the wet space. And, leaders, owners, they're like, we couldn't get the deal unless we did the toilet or we did the vanity, right? Or something, right? And it sounds like it's, and that really wears all their first service call when that toilet blows up in the middle of the night and your profit goes clear out the window. But we advise them, just don't put it in pricing. What do you sell? Whatever's in pricing. Is there a price for it in the book, in the system? No, then we don't offer it. And they're like, well, we're not going to get this job. Okay. And you may have one in the beginning that you have to walk from, but it quickly starts to change the standard. But it's the only way you're going to fix it. Like, and that's just a specific example around product. It's the only way you're going to fix it. It's just allow it.
I also want to stress to owners and managers too that I don't think that training is necessarily the answer. I mean, I always like to tell the story, right? I mean, we all can hopefully relate to the thrill of teaching your kid to ride a bike. I mean, it's probably one of the greatest things you get to do as a parent, right? But you didn't do it with PowerPoint. Like, you didn't show the kid a video and then say, watch this, now go outside and give it a shot. I mean, they would have gotten hurt. Like, you were outside running alongside of them, and eventually you let go. And when they fell down, you ran over, picked them up, told them, here's what you need to focus on. You got this. Put a little dirt on it. And then you got them on the bike and made them do it again. Like, that's what we need to do after the training. I could come in and do 3 days and be awesome, right? Let's just assume it was awesome. But nothing's going to change unless on the 4th day, the manager is coaching and holding people accountable to the things that they were trained to do. That's why the training fails. There's no easy button. And I also want to suggest too, that for those of us that think that we've got it, we're the perfect salesperson. Like, how could you not allow yourself to continue to learn and continue to grow and evolve? I mean, you don't wake up one day and say, I'm the best salesperson. You're always growing. You're always getting better. There's always a new idea. That's how we grow. That's how we get better.
In your experience, and this, you may have kind of just answered it. So if it's the same answer, so be it. But if you were to walk into 10 different companies, in-home sales teams tomorrow, or obviously not all in one day, but you get my point. What's a common mistake that you'll find in almost all 10?
Well, I think it depends on the results. Right. I mean, I think that, like, if I could narrow down like what I see to be the most consistent problems that get in the way of sales effectiveness. Number one, the salesperson's not accountable. It's not my fault. Right. I did it. Right. I love to tell the story. Like, people will go, like, we've all heard the story, right? Hey, Joe, I wanted to buy from you, man. You're a good guy, but it was just a money thing. And the sales rep leaves and goes, I did my job. They like me. When have you in your career, Joe, ever had a homeowner say that I didn't buy from you because you suck?
Yeah. Right.
When did they ever say that? When did they ever say, I'm not buying from you because I don't trust you and I don't like you? I mean, we got to realize that we're the least trusted business type that consumers do business with, bar none. And you've been in their house and you know where they live. They don't want to make you mad. They don't want to hurt your feelings. So number one, I'm not accountable. Number two, there's no process. It's like sales reps are just allowed to go out and just kind of do their own thing. And I'm not trying to take away anybody's personality or style, but I think that you need to provide steps or structure or a roadmap that will allow them to put them in the best position. It's a recipe, right? You know how to do the recipe, but you can do it with your own style. One of the other things I see is that we don't do a good enough job of telling a company story. Right. And by the way, the companies out there that have done a good job of developing a company's story, they have no mechanism to see whether or not the sales reps are doing it properly. which is why there's technology out there today that's amazing stuff that I would strongly suggest that we buy into. Look, you need to create a differentiate. You need to differentiate your business in the mind of the consumer or the homeowner to the point where they're saying, man, I don't care what materials you're using. I want you to be my contractor. Joe, I'd be crazy if I chose anybody other than you. Well, how do they get there? Well, they get there by us asking questions up front to determine their wants, needs, fears, and concerns. And then when we deliver our company story, we connect the dots back to the things that they told us that they wanted and they cared about. The other mistake that we see, and this is more on the retail side, is we don't do enough on the price conditioning side. We have prospects that watch Property Brothers and think that a roof should cost $8,000. A kitchen should cost $10,000. And now I've got to go in and I've got to drop my $25,000 price on them. And that creates shock. We need to find a way strategically to make them think that it's going to be significantly more than it actually is. Like, I want to do such a good job that when I give them my number, they literally go, wow, I thought it was going to be more than that.
Yeah.
And if you don't think that's possible, you're fooling yourself. The other thing I would say is I don't use financing properly. Financing is a chess game, and I say this in the book, right? Sales is not a game of checkers. Checkers is reactionary. And I know people would argue and say, well, there is a strategy, but look, you move, I move, you move, I move, until hopefully we end up in a situation where I can win. Chess is strategic, right? Every move I make is designed to do something that puts me in a position where I can win. And I don't ever want to make it seem like I'm talking about me winning over the customer. I think we both win in the end because I know that we're going to do the best job and we're going to take care of them. But at the end of the day, every question that I ask, every move that I make in the roadmap is designed to create a condition where it makes it easier for me to get a yes at the end of the sale. So the questions I ask in the beginning are going to help me overcome the objections that we're going to hear in the end. And I just think, yeah, go ahead.
I want to jump in. I just want to, because I agree with you, but I also want to make sure whoever, as people listen to it or listen to the replay, price conditioning. Again, it's been, let's just call it 10 years, maybe got everything with pre-pandemic. So let's say 8 years. You and I, you presented to our sales team with roofing at the time, and I just remember something that I had never done to that point, probably was second nature to you, but you had taught us, and I could have this wrong. It has been 8 years. We would show pictures of finished roofs with monthly payments highlighted at the top of like an actual project. I could be botching it there.
Yeah, so I just had an idea, and I think it's a good one, right? And I've always struggled. I don't know about anybody else, but you ask people for testimonials, which I think are very powerful, even today, right? We need social proof. Everybody promises they're going to give you a testimonial, and then you got to waterboard them. Hey, did you write it? Did you get it? So what I would do is I would just create like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, like in PowerPoint or Word, and I would put a 5 by 7 box in the top of it that would hold the picture. And then I would put my logo in the bottom corner, and I would hand the homeowner a note or the page when I was doing my final walk or whatever it was. And I would say, hey, did you have a good experience? Would you write something nice about my company in the bottom? And they'd write a nice little note. You guys were great. Thanks so much. Would highly recommend you. And then I'd say, would you come outside now, stand next to my yard sign so I could take a picture of you in front of your home? And they'd say, I don't want to do that. I go, come on. I've seen you on Facebook and what you're doing. You can take this picture for me. So they take the picture, thumbs up. And then I print the picture right in that 5 by 7 box on the page where they wrote their handwritten testimonial. One of the things that I suggested is that you put today's price of that project on the picture so that as you're doing your inspection or your walk around or whatever you're doing, you can give the homeowner this book, the prospect this book, and they could leaf through it and see all the happy neighbors that you've worked with, but then they can also see the pricing. And that will get them to that. What price anchoring is, it's like a cognitive bias that basically says that people are going to rely on the first piece of information that they see when making decisions. And they're going to base all that information on the decision. So if I'm showing them the projects in the area that I've done that were $18,000, for example, and then we get into the product presentation stage and I'm giving them options and I'm letting them fill their shopping cart with options, as they're filling that cart, that $18,000 anchor price now in their mind is becoming significantly more. So now when I get to the point where I'm giving them my proposal, they're thinking and they're scared. And by the way, Joe, that's a great thing, right? And I'm talking scared. I'm not saying we're using scare tactics, but I want the customer to be so dialed in on me as the contractor of choice that they're thinking, man, I really want to use you, Joe, but there's no way I'm going to be able to afford all this.
Yeah.
And then in the end, if I can just make it affordable or make it less than they thought it was going to be, and that's where financing comes in. If they think the project's going to be $25,000 and I say, Joe, we can do all this for $18,211.16, and I can get you payments as low as $239 a month, like they're relieved, right? That's the goal.
You brought up a great point with anchoring, and a good friend, he's in the group, Alan Langer, talks about it. Anchoring's really cool psychological thing, because even if somebody doesn't, let's just say I'm looking at it and I go, this is crazy, this price. I'm looking at your book, I'm leafing through it. You can't prevent the anchor from being set. It happens no matter what. So even if somebody slams the book and goes, I would never pay this, the anchor's set. It doesn't make a difference. It's really cool to read up on anchoring. And when I finally did that in my career, I was like, it makes sense versus quote unquote just price condition.
It could be as simple too as, when you're done establishing the need commitment, which is something that I think is very important and a lot of guys don't do, right? Homeowner invites you in, says, hey, I want to quote on some new windows. Like, we need to learn, like, what's going on with your current windows? Well, they're hard to crank and they feel kind of cold when I stand next to them. Well, what I need to do is I need to take that little problem and I need to blow it up into a bigger problem to create a sense of urgency that compels them to want to do it now. Right? So once we get done establishing that need commitment and they say, no, John, this is actually worse than I thought it was going to be. I really need to do something. I'd say, great. What kind of research have you guys done on this? And they'd say, well, we've kind of done a little bit of research. I'd say, okay, look, just so you know, for a project like yours, our prices, we have some customers that pay as little as $18,000. We have others that pay as much as $30,000, but you're looking for somewhere in that $20,000 range. I'm just throwing a number out there. Now, granted, they're going to get a little uncomfortable. They might be a little bit shocked, but we qualify that by saying, just so you know, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that this is affordable for you guys. But this is what we're looking at. I'm getting them comfortable with not comfortable with it, but they're mentally, they're checking in on a higher number.
Yeah, no, what do you bring up? You also brought up financing a couple times, and which I couldn't agree more. You in the book you talk about, I think, about being proactive with it early you're talking about it early in the set.
Yeah. So actually, never been a big fan of doing it early.
Okay. So
that's okay. And I actually just finished a video that I'll put out next week on it, because it's a debate, right? Some guys will say that's step 2. I get them to the table. We warm up and I ask them, how are you guys thinking about paying for this? And look, I'm not going to suggest that doesn't work, because there's a lot of guys out there that are highly successful and they're getting big ticket projects and they're selling that way. Here's my concern with it. We haven't even looked at the project yet. And I don't ever want the customer to think that I'm focused on getting them approved before I'm focused on figuring out what they want and need. We've got to sell the value and the need up front. And then at the end, when I put the proposal price in the front of them with the payment on the same page at the same time. And that's the critical factor there. I can't let the homeowner see $18,000 and then try to process that in terms of their, checking account. And I don't care, Joe, any of the listeners on here, if I said to you that this is going to cost $20,000, a lot of people would say, I need a minute to think about how I can make that work. But if I give you $239 a month, there isn't a person listening that can't tell me right now how they can do it. That's just the brilliance of financing, and that's kind of why it works. Now, it's not to suggest you don't get objections and stuff, but you could deal with that. The thing that I want to do is when I put the proposal in front of them, the payments with it on the same page at the same time, because it literally causes the homeowner to look at the price, but they're going to study that payment and they're going to measure that payment in terms of like, how can I make that happen this month? I just want to go out to dinner one night. We could do that. And then, by the way, the real key to the chess game is if they raise an objection and I can flush out the money, right? Make it about the money. I can then say, look, usually when we talk about affordability, Joe, people tell me there's a concern with either the initial deposit or the monthly payment. Let me make this simple for you. How do you feel about that monthly payment? Well, it's a little more than I thought it was going to be. Well, where did you want it to be? And now what I'm doing is I'm figuring out what range I need to get into. And then if you've got the right pricing partner, and I know that you've got people on here, that promote financing, they could provide you with a wide variety of options that could accommodate almost any budget, unless the homeowner is just being completely unreasonable.
I saw your friend. I'm assuming your friend. At least he's either that or you pay him really well to say nice things about you. Our friend Chris Covell.
Yeah.
Who I highly recommend when it comes to that. But it's all. I think I'd say worst case, and that's where I got it wrong and said the wrong things from the book. But
No, that's okay.
Worst case is to just not be reactionary once you have an objection on price, and then try to flip to financing for the first time. You're going to be now. You're like, hey, you're basically quietly saying, hey, so okay, you can't afford anything, so let's try that. It then looks like it's a crutch for the homeowner. But the median, I just looked it up just to make sure. The median household cash savings is $8,000. So how can you expect to sell anything with an average ticket? Say in these days, a lot of our projects, 15, 16, 20 plus thousand average ticket. I mean, you have to. It's the only way to get it done.
Yeah, and I think too, like even the idea of bringing it up early, right? People like we would, how do you plan on paying for this? And I know it's nuanced and there's sexier ways to have that conversation, but I've just always felt that if the homeowner goes, nah, I'm using my home equity, or I've got the cash, like that then takes away in some capacity, like my ability to offer that payment in the end. I would just rather make it and position it as if this is just an option that I offer. And I kind of let the homeowner save a little bit of face on it. So I would say we can do the project for $18,000. I can get you payments as low as $239. And look, the only reason I'm offering you those payments, because if it was me, like I would way rather hold on to my cash and use somebody else's money. I'm just making you aware of your options.
Yeah.
And now they're looking at it as a sound financial decision. And it's just me giving them options. What do you guys think is best? Whereas to your point, right, we don't want to have them dwell on that $20,000 price and then immediately check out. Well, that's a lot of money. And then we jump in and go, well, I could finance it. You've already lost them.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking, I don't know how to process $20,000. I need to talk to other contractors. That seems like a lot of money.
It's wild. It's wild. What do you think is the most common objection that reps mishandle?
I think the price, I think all objections are mishandled in a lot of ways, because I think that sales reps, and this is something that I did talk about a lot in the book, right? The two most important words is I understand, right? Be agreeable. Like we have guys out there, and I want people to think, right? I do say this in the book, and I'm stealing from my friend Jeffrey Gitomer, who says that sales are made emotionally and they're justified logically. So guys, if we, and we'll all argue that that's not the case. I don't make emotional decisions. Yes, you do. And the data out there suggests that you make emotional snap decisions early on. The logical side of the brain will eventually catch up to what it is that the emotional side of the brain wants to do. And the logical side of the brain is looking for a reason to be smart, to make it feel like it's smart. I'm not being irrational. I'm not making an emotional decision. So what happens is when the homeowner makes and raises an objection, a lot of sales reps try to respond with logic. You shouldn't respond with logic. You should respond with emotion, because emotion is what's engaging them and it's pulling them in. And if you think about it, like the whole process that we're trying to teach in the roadmap is a succession of milestones, right? It's a progression of milestones. Do they recognize, did I get the need commitment? Do they recognize they have a problem and are they committed to solving it? Did I get the company commitment? Do they believe in my company and think we're a good choice for the project? Did I get the product commitment? Do they think that our solution is aligned with what it is that they want? Are they excited about the products we're using? With those three commitments secured, I would ask that trial close question that would basically say, so at this point, Joe, is it safe to say that money is the only thing that's standing in the way? Yeah, John, at this point, I just need to know what it's going to cost. They just told me the only possible reason they can say no is financial. So whether they say they want to think about it, they want to shop around, now's not a good time, I know it's money. And I just now, because I've gotten rid of all those other objections, I can just flush out the money objection and solve it. But anyway, somebody raises a price objection and says, well, you're more expensive than the other guys. And we get logical. Well, we're certified and we've been in business for 25 years and we've got 400 4.8 star reviews. And I'm not taking away the value of those. But at the end of the day, you've already talked about all that in your company story. At this point, I just need to cater to the emotion by saying, hey, Joe, I understand we're more expensive. Like, we're never going to be the cheapest. But look, I mean, if you were going to put both estimates side by side, if we were the same price, I mean, who do you feel would do the better job? Who do you think is going to give you the better result? And because you're sitting in front of them, they're going to say, well, you are. Obviously, I want to work with you. I'd say, great. And why is that? And what I'm asking them to do is to give me all of the emotional reasons why they feel like that we're a good choice. And when they're doing that, they're also telling the logical side of the brain, this makes sense. But this is the problem, right? So many reps. I'm sorry, I get all geeked up.
This is great. I love it. Go.
But so many of the reps out there, they think that, like, if I went into a training room and I said, what do you guys want to talk about today? They go, objections. And I'm like, dude, I'll give you my responses, but your ability to overcome the objection has less to do with the response. It has way more to do with the emotional connection that you built leading up to it. And the analogy I like to give, like, if you meet the girl of your dreams and you ask her to marry you and she says she needs to discuss it with her dad, or I need to think about it, or I got to see who else is going to ask first before I make any final decisions, there's a good chance she's telling you that you're not the guy. And I would argue that there's no silver-tongued response that you can come back with that's going to compel her to want to put the ring on her finger. And here's the other thing that I ask people to consider all the time too. Like, you're asking, when you ask a woman to marry you, you're asking her to give you a commitment, hopefully, that you believe is a commitment for a lifetime. Right? When you ask somebody to buy from you, you're asking them to give you a commitment that's worth $25,000. How many of us can honestly say, based on the time that we've spent with that prospect, that we have a $25,000 relationship?
Great point.
And we don't get there. Like, I don't go up to the pretty, and I'm a married guy, so this isn't my game, but I don't go up to the pretty girl at the bar and say, hey, my name is John. I've got a 4-year degree. I'm gainfully employed. Here's a list of references. Let's get you on my schedule. I don't ask her to marry me. But guys, that's what some of our sales reps do on a sales call. Hey, thanks for inviting me out here. You got some beautiful flowers here. Is that your truck? I'm going to take some measurements. I'll give you a price. We'll go from there. You're dropping a $20,000 price. They don't know anything about your company. They don't know anything about the product. They might like you, but they don't have enough to base it on. So when I put that question in front of you, Joe, and I say, look, if both estimates were the same, like, who would you want to use? I want to make sure that they have reasons in their heart, you know, that compels them to want to use me. And if they don't, that's not the customer's fault. We didn't communicate effectively.
I love this, by the way, because it brings up another great point. Let's just assume they don't emphatically say you at that point. 99% of reps continue to go down a price drop route. They haven't isolated, right? So it's irrelevant. So if I say that question, hey, let's just say all things being equal, we were same price, 15K, who would you choose? And they're like, I don't know. I still have to think about it. Well, dropping price isn't going, there's still something there's uncertainty about, right? So we haven't isolated that, hey, other than the fact that we're $2,000 higher, is this the price? You talk about it with the AIR method. I love it, by the way. Mm-hmm. It just cuts it down. It's concise. And, you know, but that middle of that I is so, it's best all the time.
Yeah. So AIR is the acronym, right? We want to air out. I call it air out the price objection. The acronym A is acknowledge, right? I'm not going to argue. Hey, John, your price is higher than the other guy. I'm sure it is, right? I acknowledge that. I isolate it. Hey, if we could just set the price aside for 1 second, is there any other reason that you wouldn't want to work with us? No, I like you. It's just more than I want them to spend. The R is remedy. And I would do my check and I'd say, Joe, so if I could make this more affordable for you, like, we'd be doing this, right? And if you said, yeah, I'd say, great. So look, tell me what affordability looks like for you. And here's the other, like, strategy, right? And this is the chess part of it. You guys have a wide variety of financing options. Like our friend Chris Scoville can give you a whole bunch of financing plans that you can choose from. Don't make the mistake of leading with the best payment. Because here's what's going to happen is if the homeowner has an issue with the payment or they just want to negotiate to feel like they got something, the only way you can lower that payment is to ask them to take money out of their bank account as a down payment or you lower your price. So I would argue that you start with the higher payment. If I start with a payment of $312 a month and I say to the homeowner, how does that payment feel for you? And she says, well, I need it to be like closer to 250 or I need it to be closer to 200. And I'd say, okay, 200 up to, and I'm bracketing it. And if she says, you know, John, 225 would probably be the most that I could spend, I then confirm, right? So, Joe, if I can get you a payment between 200 and 225, are we going to be able to get this thing done for you guys?
Yeah.
And you say, yeah, if you could do that, I'll get started. Well, then I just dip into my financing program and I look for the payment option that's going to get me to that number. And I say, whoa, Joe, you're going to love this. No money down, no prepayment penalty. Here's what we got. And I'm just going to push the paperwork over. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's it's the and that spot on. And then again, back to the isolation. We're trying to solve something that's not the root cause or the problem that's going to prevent us from moving forward today, right? It's irrelevant if they're not quote unquote ready on everything else.
Yeah, and that's part of the chess move, right? And I keep referring to this as a chess, but like one of the things that we teach sales reps never to do is sales professionals never assume anything, right? We always question, we ask. So if I've gone through the process, right, and I've secured the need commitment, they want to do the job, the company commitment, I think you guys are a great choice. Here's why, by the way. And the product commitment, while we're excited, we think it's going to look great. I can reasonably assume that at this point, it's going to come down to the money, but I would never want to assume. So I ask, and I might issue what we call like a trial close question. Some people refer to it as a pre-close. I don't care what you call it, as long as you do it. And I'm going to say, hey, Joe, look, so at this point, usually our clients tell us that they like the company and they love the product. As long as we can make this fit in their budget, they're going to want to get on the schedule. Like, is that where we're at? Or I might say, Joe, let me just recap real quick. Like, this is a project that I think you said that you definitely want to do at some point. Yep, definitely want to do it. And when the time comes for you to do that project, you feel safe in us, you think we'd be a good option? Oh, absolutely. And as far as the product's concerned, you think it's the right fit and you're happy with all the choices that have been made? Absolutely. So, Joe, at this point, is it safe to say that it's going to come down to the money? And you're going to go, yeah, I mean, at this point, we just need to know what it's going to cost. Well, because I've just got them to tell me that it's all about the money. When they tell me, hey, John, everything looks good, we're just going to need to think about it. I'd say, hey, Joe, no problem. I completely understand. This is a big decision. Just so I'm clear, earlier in our conversation, you said that you like the company and you love the product. You said the only thing standing in the way was the money. What is it you need to think about? I mean, is it the initial deposit or is it the monthly payment? And I'm getting them to tell me what it is, and then I just air it out.
Yeah.
And ask again for the close.
You've been fortunate enough with your career. You really have spanned, across the country. You've met a lot of sales teams, sales reps. If you were to isolate one habit that every elite salesperson sells in the home has in common, what would you say it is?
I would say a genuine interest in their prospect, like a care and authenticity. I mean, gosh, there's so many things, man.
Yeah, I know one's tough.
I think authenticity is important. I think that your ability to create a real connection with the prospect. I'll give you a great story, right? I was working with a customer. He's actually a good friend of mine in North Carolina. And he said, before the meeting, we were like, he was saying, I want you to look at this rep. He's got the system dialed in. He knows the process. He knows the script. He's just not closing deals. So what happened is, as we were going through the coaching session, he would refer to this rep and he would say, Joe, why don't you tell John how you would do this? And this kid had it dialed in. And I couldn't figure out why it wasn't clicking, right? And he's literally like, he's in a tangent and going, I think I need to focus on body language. I think I need to look. And I'm going like, whoa, dude, let's just. And, I realized after I was watching him and role playing with him, he was bored with his own script. And when he was delivering it, it was like robotic. And I'm like, dude, you need to be a little more human in the way that you communicate. And this is the other thing too, right? Like you hear me, like I get real geeked up and energized and excited to share some of this stuff with people. But when you're sitting at the kitchen table and they raise an objection, you've got to come way down. Like you can't be amped up like me. Yeah. So if you're telling me now that you want to think about it, that must mean like, because you're going to overwhelm them and steamroll them. You got to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah.
And be just more, really way more human, I guess. I don't know. Neighborly, what is the word? Just connect with people.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a good friend of ours in the group, or mine in the group, Kyle Sellers. He has a great story about this same concept. Word for word. I mean, just like better than anybody I'd ever trained, at the company. And, I don't know, I can't remember. The gentleman was, 0 for 10, getting ready to quit, jumps in the home with them, and they walk out, no deal. He wanted to just fully evaluate them, but not get involved, and, he walks out, the guy looks and goes, see, I mean, like, what do you want me to do? And Kyle tells it great because he's laughing. He goes, oh, this is easy. And the guy's like, oh, what do you mean? He goes, that guy in there is not the guy that I met and interviewed and hired and had beers with his buddy at the bar to watch the Packers play. You've got to go in there with the roadmap that you have, the process, because you know it, but you got to deliver as you. Not anybody else, not any, whatever. And it turns his career around. And I actually know the other gentleman. I don't like to mention his name just in case, but it's usually you don't have the first piece, which is the person that actually has the process down. Usually you're fighting that battle, I find, where it's like, man, hold on, I need you to get to this part. I can't swim your laps for you. I can't do your push-ups for you. You got to get it down. Then we can refine it. But you usually don't have that problem. It's this, and that's great. But it's true. You have to, and that's the thing. People think, oh, it's scripted, it'll be robotic. No, you rehearse it so much that it doesn't come off rehearsed at all.
Yeah, I think it was David Yoho has a guy who works with his group now, real stud trainer guy. I can't remember his name, but he says that you memorize a script until it becomes a part of you. And that's the most rewarding thing, I think, for me, like as a trainer. I mean, beyond watching people win, right? But it's really when they fight with you on, I don't want to use a script. And then you're like, please just try this. And then next thing you know, like a month later, they're using your script word for word, even though they were so resistant to it. And it's because they've memorized it and they've gone over it and over and over it so many times that now it just makes sense for them, and they can still deliver it in a way that's authentic because it's a part of them. It's not them reading my notes. Yeah. And that's the key to everybody. I mean, like, I think scripts are important, and I'll tell you, scripts are important for guys in particular, because guys, we have one thing that we all need to work on. And I'm talking to the men. We need to listen better. At least my wife tells me that, or something. I can't remember. No, but the truth is, I mean, like, women have a superpower, right? They're the parts of their brain that are responsible for language comprehension and understanding are bigger in women than they are in men. Women are better listeners. They listen with the intent to understand. Men, we listen with the intent to respond. So the whole time, Joe, that you're talking to me, I'm thinking about, what am I going to say next? Yeah. And if I'm trying to sell you and you're telling me what your problems are and what your needs are and what your fears are, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next, and I'm not hearing anything. But if I'm scripted, if I've got everything right here, I know what I'm going to say. Well, now I can pay attention to you, and better, I can recite that script in a way that makes it seem like it's an authentic part of that conversation.
100%.
And the other thing too, by the way, that the women are really good at is the nonverbals. Like, they could pick up on, if I take my glasses off, that means something. If I make a facial expression, if I change body language, they're inquisitive about that stuff, way more collaborative about that. We want to go in and we want to one up people and tell them how great we are. And we're just going through our thing. Just slow down. Talk to people like you genuinely care about them.
Yeah.
You're genuinely interested in them and want to help them.
I'll never forget. There's a lady in the group. She's one of the best in-home sales reps I ever met, and now grateful to see she's an amazing sales leader, Marion. And I did a ride along with her one time, and now that you're saying this, and I remember because it caught me off guard. The customer, I think it was the wife, did something with her body language, maybe even kind of like rolled her eyes a little bit or just something, right? And instead of bulldozing through that, Marion recognized it, stopped, and said, "Hey, I noticed, that maybe didn't sit well," and addressed it right then and there. And it was really minor, but I think if it wasn't addressed, like you're talking, like that customer wouldn't have felt understood. The whole dynamic of the appointment changed. At least when that customer, I think the husband was pretty much, fine anyway. But with that, now you say that, I just remember that, and I was like, because at the time I was like, oh, this could get, I didn't know where it was going, but it changed the whole dynamic because now that customer said, "Oh my goodness, I feel heard, I feel understood." Plus, I didn't know if she realized she did it, but then it made sense that she probably did. So, it changed the whole dynamic of the appointment from the discovery right through. So that's pretty wise advice. I tell you, I wish just for the good of the industry, it would benefit to see more. I wish more females were in the industry because of just some advantages that they clearly have that they could, leverage. But anyway, that'll be for another day. What's let's just say you're scrolling the internet, the interwebs, the Facebooks, the social media, or maybe just going to visit companies like you do. What's the worst sales advice that you still hear or see getting, being repeated?
Oh man. Well, the sales is a numbers game is one. I just think that's kind of defeatist. I think that I'll tell you one I think is kind of funny is the fact that we sales managers see people and meet people that are really gregarious and outgoing, and they immediately think that person should be great at sales. And I would argue that they're probably not going to be very good at sales. And the reason being is because sales isn't about big personality and being gregarious. I also would argue that the people that are the gregarious ones that want to be the center of attention on the life of the party, that they have a high need for approval. And if you put them in a sales role where they're going to face rejection, they're going to do everything within their power to not be rejected and to be approved. So they're not going to do anything that's going to cause them to be rejected, such as, I'm not going to ask for the sale. I'm not going to try to overcome the objection. I'm not going to really do anything in the process because I don't want to sell. I just want to be friends with people. So I think that, I'm not saying you don't hire those people, but you need to recognize that they're going to need to be coached and they need to be dialed in and, held accountable to the process.
Yeah. I talk about hiring. We don't necessarily focus on it too much, but here I wasn't going to, but any traits that you see stand out that you would look for?
No, not really. I mean, I like to ask questions like just to gauge their head trash a little bit, like help me like define yourself as a salesperson. Like, how do you see yourself as a salesperson? Like if they say to me, well, I'm not the typical salesperson, like that's a red flag for me. Like, what does that mean? Well, I'm not pushy. Like they're telling you that they don't want to be pushy. And look, I don't ever want people to be pushy. Like my process and system, I think I go to great lengths to say it's got to be about the prospect. Everything I do is about helping the prospect make the best decision for them, which I do believe happens to be me, but it's all about helping them. If sales reps go in with a mindset where it's like, I don't want to be pushy, they're probably not going to do anything that they think is going to be perceived as pushy, which means I'm not going to ask personal questions. I'm not going to try to overcome the objection. I'm not going to ask for the sale. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I'm just going to show up and I'm going to hope they jump in the shopping cart. And that doesn't really happen. I ask people things like, do you think it's more important that your customer buys from you, or do you think it's more important that they like you? And some people will say, well, no, it's more important that they buy from me. And those are the people that recognize that they do need to like me to buy from me, but the goal is to get them to buy from me. The people that are worried about being liked, they're going to be a challenge for you guys.
That's a good point.
You know, that's just what I think.
No, I think it's spot on. If now for the sales managers that are in the group, what's one thing? So they have we all have them at some point, but you have a struggling rep. What's the first thing from a sales manager perspective you would have them do or advise them to do?
Well, one is set clear expectations and make sure that everybody's accountable to all those expectations. You know, one of the things that I like to say to do, and it makes some people uncomfortable, is, there's a lot of businesses that I'm sure are out there where they've got the big board in the training room with all the numbers on it. And then the sales reps come into their weekly meeting and they see their numbers on the board. I don't like to have them walk in and see their numbers. I want them to get up and write their numbers on the board for everybody to see. I can hide from my number. But when I have to walk up in the front of the room and I know that the expectation is that I need to knock 20 doors and I need to convert 40% of my leads, for example, and I write down that I only knocked 5 doors and I only converted 10% of my leads, that's going to make me extremely uncomfortable. I'm either going to want to correct my behavior so that I don't have to look like a loser, or I'm going to leave because I don't want to have to feel uncomfortable about my lack of results. And at the end of the day, I think both situations, the company wins. I'll tell you one thing, Joe, that's always amazing to me. And I don't like it when it happens, but when it happens, it's a good thing. I could be in a training room where I'm talking to people about sales and objections or whatever it is they want to talk about. And there might be a person in the room that's just negative on everything. Well, that's not going to work. Have you ever sold in this market? That wouldn't work here. And eventually what winds up happening is, and you'll get one person in the room who's usually the rainmaker. They'll step up and they'll say to that sales rep, why don't you shut the hell up? And the sales rep will go, excuse me? And that rainmaker will say, I'm in the same market you're in, selling the same products, going up against the same competitors, and I'm kicking your butt. Why don't you shut up and listen to what he has to say? Now, look, I don't ever want to be in an environment where people are like banging heads like that, but that's a sign. You've got one rep in the room who thinks that he's got to carry the load for the entire organization, and the manager or the coach or the owner is letting this other guy just get away with the excuses game. And it's funny is like after those situations happen, I always do a debrief with the owner and the manager. And they'll always say to me, what do you think of that exchange? And I'd say, well, what do you think of it? Right. And then they give me their take on it. And I will then look at the manager and go, why did he have to say that? That's your job.
Yeah.
And then the owner will go, yep. And then I'll look at the owner and I'll go, it's your job too.
Yeah.
It's not a spectator sport. Right. So
Yeah.
you don't allow this environment where people are getting like it was really funny. And I hate to keep going on these crazy stories, but I was in a local business, right? 3rd generation family business, really great family company, home improvement contractor. And one of the guys in the room was like, I mean, everything was negative. That ain't going to work. When's the last time you sat at the kitchen table? So we get done at the end of the meeting and the owner says to me, what'd you think? And I'm like, what did you think? And he says, well, I know that Joe can be a little bit, closed-minded and so on and so forth. And I said, well, I got to be honest with you. I go, based on what I heard, I go, Joe isn't worth the ink on his business card. And he goes, well, what do you want me to do? He goes, yeah, I understand. But he goes, I'm loyal. And he's been with the company since my dad was running the business. And I said, hey, that's great. But this is about money. You're a business owner. And this is about you making sure that you're making money. And he said, so what do you think I should do? Should I fire him? And I said, no, don't fire him. He's been here for 20 years. I go, how many roofs do you need Joe to sell a week for you to be profitable with Joe? He said, I need him to sell 3 roofs a week. I said, have you ever told him that? So fast forward 9 months later, I'm at the home show and I'm walking through and they have a booth in the show. And I walk in and I said, hey guys, how's it going? And the business owner pulls me aside and he goes, hey, remember Joe? And I go, yeah. He goes, I told him I needed 3 roofs a week. I go, what happened? He goes, he's selling 5. Guys, so much of this is the fact that we're just not having that honest conversation. Because at the end of the day, if that guy didn't care, he would have just let himself fizzle out. But because he did care and he was loyal to the company, he said, you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to sell 3 roofs a week. Better yet, I'm going to sell 5 a week. And he made it happen. We didn't have to fire him. We didn't have to threaten him. We didn't have to, carrot and stick the guy. It was just like, hey, man, I just need you to do this for me. Can you do this? What do you need for me to make that happen? And that's something that I think sales managers also, I mean, if we could give advice to the sales manager, your job isn't to tell people what to do, because then you're creating an environment where they can't grow without you. And you might like that security, but at the end of the day, it's a hell of a lot more productive if I can create a condition where you can figure it out on your own. So all I'm going to do when I'm in those coaching conversations is I'm going to focus on the goal. Hey, what's the goal here? Okay, tell me what you're currently doing, because obviously that's not getting it done.
Yeah.
And they're owning that. And then I'm going to say, Joe, look, if we were to make a change, like what are some of the things that you think you might do differently that would put you in a position where you could achieve those results? You're going to make that list. I'm going to say, do you want to hear some of my suggestions? And you're going to say, sure. And I'm going to give you my list. And we're going to look at the list together. And I'm going to say, Joe, what do you think we should do next? You're going to decide. And if I believe in it and I think it's the right decision, I'm going to say, hey, Joe, I think that's a great decision. When do you think you're going to start doing that? Tomorrow. Okay, call me tomorrow. Let me know how it goes. Because what I got to figure out as a manager is do I have a skill problem or do I have a will problem? If it's a skill problem, I could train you. I could coach you. If it's a will problem, well, we can't instantly resolve to the fact that will is a function of lazy, because the will might be also a function of confidence, right? My daughter may want to ride that bike, but if she's scared that she's going to crash and get hurt, she could have a really big desire to get out there and pedal that bike. But if she's afraid she's going to get hurt, she's not going to do it. Your sales reps might really want to go out there and close deals, but if they don't feel they have the skills to do it, they're not going to do it. You can't sell scared. So it's our job as sales managers to figure out what those roadblocks are and then coach them back to the roadmap or the process that you've gifted them. What's the recipe? And the best thing to do is let them decide, and you coach them on that decision. If you tell me this is what I'm going to work on, this is what I'm going to do, that's going to help me get to that next level, and I think it's the right decision, I'm going to say, man, go for it. What do you need from me? And you're going to say, no, I got this. Right? Now what happens is, and I learned the hard way because I was the sales manager that would tell people what to do. And then thank God I had one wise ass sales rep who at the end of the day, I said, what happened? He goes, well, it didn't work. And I go, why not? He goes, I knew it wouldn't work. The only reason I did it is because you told me to do it. And I'm like, you son of a gun.
Yeah.
So then I figured out, I'm not going to tell you what to do anymore. You're going to figure it out.
And you probably know, that's what's called the grow model, right? Of coaching. Is that, am I wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The goal, here's the goal. What's reality? What are options? And then what's the way forward?
Yep. Perfect.
I love it. Okay. I thought that's what I just didn't know. Well, hey, we've gone over time. Last thing, someone listening to this that remembers only one thing from our conversation today, what should it be?
Oh man, I would just say align yourself with a process and proven best practices that are going to follow a recipe. Put yourself in the best position to win the sale. The one thing that I would recommend, and I say this all the time, get into that habit of debriefing. We didn't really talk about this, but at the end of every single sales call, whether I won or I didn't win, just like when we golf, right? If the shot was great, I get off the tee and I go, whoa, how did I do that? I want to do it again. If the shot wasn't good, I'm going to stop and go, what did I do wrong? I'm going to focus on this next time. Always get into that process of debriefing and figuring out if I could do a do-over, what's the one thing that I would do differently that would put me in the best position to win? I guarantee if you do that consistently, you're going to be a significantly better salesperson because you're focusing on the things within your own power. You're not limiting yourself by the challenges, the real challenges that are out there, and making those the reasons why you can't sell.
You talk about it in the book, Mulligans. I love that story. Yeah. Spot on. You don't have them in the home, but you can don't. After. John, thanks so much. Real quick, what's the best way for anybody to get a hold of you these days? Yeah,
I would just say send me an email, connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn. You should be able to find me and send me an email.
Okay.
Do you post the emails? Do I put it on here?
I'll get it in the show notes. If the one from the book that I had asked you about in the beginning, I'll put that in there, and I'll obviously tag you on this stream that's happening as we speak in the group. And obviously, I'm assuming people can message you through Facebook as well. So perfect. John, man, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. This was fun. I mean, if you
Thanks
can't
for
tell, I get really excited about talking to people about this
I
stuff.
love it. I love it. Till next week. Hope everybody enjoys this episode, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.